Good morning from Vietnam, everybody. I am your host, Joshua, and I am here with Sash, my co host, also in Vietnam. How are you doing today, Sash?
I'm doing mighty fine, except the fact that our classes got canceled prematurely.
Yeah, we are in Ho Chi Minh City, so we're away from a big outbreak, and a big outbreak in Vietnam is like 82 people. But the
It was in
government's
the north somewhere, right? It was Ninh Binh.
Hai Yung and Nan Binh. And the, I mean, it's the government issued an order to shut down outside activities, schooling, English centers, language centers, stuff like that. But we're coming into a time of the year that's really different in Vietnam than the rest of the world, and the main thing there is the fact that we're going through. Oh, sorry, I was trying to fix my green screen. I'm pretty transparent. We're about to go into Tet, the Lunar New Year, and it was just 30 or 40 years ago that people would have 3 months off for Tet. So the government ending things a week early before this holiday coming up, especially ending school, it's not that big of a deal, and it's like a better safe than sorry. And hey, it's Ted anyway. Let the kids out of school. Like, it's not anything serious. I don't think we're gonna face another lockdown situation. The Vietnamese seem to be pretty on top of this as a whole. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, remember though, this entire virus when it first started last year got really pushed on during TET by the global media, because it's not just Vietnam that celebrates Tet; it's also China and the rest of Southeast Asia as well.
Sure, they all celebrate, and not the rest. Like Cambodia has their own New Year, and Thailand has Songkran. That's not for a month or two, and India celebrates a different New Year. It's not all of Southeast Asia. China certainly does celebrate the same time, but not in the same fashion. I mean, uh, it's been a long time since the Chinese have had 3 months off for the Lunar New Year, especially with the nationalist promotion of their economy, right? You don't want to be unproductive for that
Yeah.
long. The Vietnamese have been less concerned about productivity. That's not so true in the last 15 years, but 40 years ago, 50 years ago, during the war, I mean, that's part of the reason why there was the war, right? They told the IMF to get out, and the IMF promised them growth and productivity, and they're like, well, this sounds like colonialism too. And so the US came to end that because that's not allowed. So I've got a couple things I want to go up. I mean, the main thing that everyone's talking about is GameStop, right? Like, that's what's going on in the world.
AMC as well. It's
AMC as well,
GameStop
huh?
was the first, and then I was a little bit too late to get on the GameStop bandwagon, but I did get in on the AMC bandwagon and doubled my money.
And just a
But
reminder, everybody, there's no financial advice going on here. Sash,
no, no,
he's a
no,
monkey,
no.
and he
I'm
thinks
telling you from
AMC
my
is bananas, and so
experience.
monkeys buy bananas. That's all. He's a monkey brain, and he thinks AMC is bananas. So if you don't understand that, stop listening. But yeah, keep going. I
Yeah,
just don't want to
so
get
I
kicked
got
off
in.
YouTube for fraudulent financial
Yeah,
advice.
yeah. I got in on AMC at $4.88. I was able to get 40.5 shares on Robinhood for $200. Then I sold out of my position 2 days later when the stock was at $3.59. And I did that mainly because I'm going to switch my trading platform from Robinhood to Webull, because the way that Robinhood fucked over its customers
Well, what did it
last
do
week.
to you? Did it close any of your positions? I heard there are two
No,
lawsuits about that, but I
okay,
haven't verified.
okay. They didn't close my positions, but what they did, right? They wouldn't, like, when it comes to like the stocks. GME and AMC. Uh, Basically, the only thing you could do is close your position, but and you couldn't buy new stocks.
Okay. So yeah, if the only thing you can do is close your position, then you can't open new ones. You can't buy new stocks. So, what exactly happened with GameStop? If you're gonna put it into your words, how did
Okay,
this know nothing
basically,
stock? Why? What did they do? Who is Potato in my Asu? And
all
what's
right.
going on?
Well, it was originally Zero Hedge that broke the story about how GameStop was being shorted 100% of their shares. Now, people saw that, posted it on Reddit, and then you had this gigantic thing where people just bought GameStop, and basically, what happened was a short squeeze.
All right, so it wasn't just that they were at 100% of their shares being shorted, and it's not
It was
exactly
it was
it's not
Citron
exactly
and Melvin.
abnormal
Well, okay,
for a
it
company
was
to be
mainly
100%. So why is it a bunch of retards on Reddit with Robinhood were able to influence the price so much? What was different about this? What was going on? Well, I mean, short positions exist,
they
they're
have
legal. What
they have sorry, they have Elon Musk and Chamath Palihapitiya by their side.
I mean, come on. That's what you think. So you think it was just cool, normal, legal short squeeze, and a bunch of monkeys on Reddit initiated it, and Elon Musk, who probably works for the CIA, helped them to take down what one hedge fund, Melvin.
Okay, so it was Citron and Melvin.
So
Basically, what really pissed these people on Reddit off was Citron's CEO basically being like, I know more than you. Then they kept pumping up the stock. Then they also have this beef with Jim Cramer and CNBC. The Redditors' argument is the same thing we're doing is what the hedge funds have been doing for years.
I mean, that's like trying to argue in favor of counting cards in a casino, right? Like it's their
Yeah,
house. They literally own it. It's a private company owned by these hedge funds. Or sorry, not by the hedge funds, by the prime brokers. And then the hedge funds pay the prime brokers. That's a bit of a tongue twister with noise canceling headphones on. Um, like $8 to $9 billion a year each in commissions. So what what made this different? Like I've got a Forbes Forbes article I want to show. So let me switch over here. Um, there we go. That works a little bit better. So there's nothing really new to a company being over 100%. Like this article is about what happened essentially, the naked horror, and the title of this episode is "The Naked Truth of Naked Shorts," because the thing is it wasn't so much that there were 100% of shorts on the market. It's about the share of the shorts that were naked shorts. And you can see this article is from 2006 by Liz Moyer on Forbes magazine. It's really not something new. So, do you know the difference between a short and a naked short? Or what is a short, I guess, is the best place to start.
basically, a short is when you borrow a stock and then immediately sell it with
Right,
the position that you think the price is going to go down. Then
right.
you buy that stock when it goes down, and you collect the difference
Right. So what you
when you have to
described
give it
is
back. Yeah.
what you described as a disclosed short. You borrow a stock, and now usually what'll happen is the prime brokers or the smaller brokers like Robinhood, who has to go to a prime broker or broker dealer, will just do this in house. They'll borrow from one of their own customers. They won't even let them know, except in the terms of very big customers. They'll borrow one of that, and then they will sell it, like you said, and then eventually, when the other person closes out their position, they'll purchase the stock back and return it to the person who lent it. But a naked short is a little bit different. So let me read this definition. So this is a naked short is an invention of the securities industry that is a license to create counterfeit shares, essentially. And when I say counterfeit shares, I mean that literally, not legally, because a naked short is legal at this time. In the context of this document, which is something I'm reading on counterfeiting stock, in the context of this document, a share created that has the effect of increasing the number of shares that are in the marketplace beyond the number issued by the company is considered counterfeit. This is not a legal conclusion, since some shares we consider counterfeit are legal based on today's rules. The alleged justification for naked shorting is to ensure an orderly and smooth market, but all too often it is used to create a virtually unlimited supply of counterfeit shares, which leads to widespread stock manipulation, the linchpin of this massive fraud. So, this guy is talking about when a company will use naked shorts to devalue a company so much by just flooding the market with available stock. I think GameStop was at 140% um, at the time. And so there was 140% of the company's stock for sale at the moment. And here's an interesting tweet from January 29th by Michael Burry. Give me 1 second. Let me share my screen again. And so he said in May of 2020, which is long before anyone's really started talking about this online. I think September was the earliest I could find. He called in his lent out GME shares. So basically, his broker had lent his shares to someone to make a short position, and it took the broker weeks to find them. So probably what was happening to GameStop here was a company is trying to devalue them so that they can do a takeover, so that they can buy them. Essentially, they're trying to either drive them completely out of business, or they're trying to make their stock so worthless that they can do a massive buy, and then they can own GameStop at the end. There was one hedge fund involved in this, but it wasn't it wasn't a move for them solely to make money. It was more of a point to destroy this company. And this is legal for a certain amount. So the average broker, like someone like Robinhood, can only have a naked short on the market for 3 days. But someone like Charles Schwab can have a naked short on the market for 21 days, I believe. And this allows things like this to happen, where basically these stocks are being sold that don't exist. They're just creating them out of thin air. So what happened when all these autists started buying GME stocks, and then it started getting media attention? It was the fact that these companies were lying and they were committing counterfeit. Like, if they can't get these stocks in time and prove that they were covered in some way, and as you know, GME keeps rising, he keeps holding, there's a very real chance that a lot of people are going to go to jail. Like, the SEC
I do
doesn't
see
play
that.
around. And so
I
it's
mean,
go ahead.
well, that depends. Like, do you think this time around the U.S. government can get away with bailing out these funds?
um I think if the U.S. government bails them out of the with these funds, of course they could, but I don't see it being that direct, and
No, no, no.
I don't see it being enough
I'm
money
saying
yet. How big is the GME market cap right now today?
I'm not sure, but no, no. What I was asking was like, would the Biden administration get away with it though, if they were to bail out these hedge funds?
Absolutely. I mean, only the
You think the
progressives who already hate Biden would be mad at him. I mean, and then the whatever's left of the failed Republican Party. I mean, the Democrats have no opposition and they have everything rigged. Like, what the hell do they care?
no? I mean, would would the public let them get away with it?
Yes, they'll just be angry tweets. Like
Okay,
what do you
okay.
think? The government's gonna they're gonna storm the Capitol building a second time and do nothing?
I think there will be mass protests.
So the government's been funding these protests all 2020. They don't care about protests. They want you to live in fear. Protests helps that.
What if? What if it's a protest that they cannot control?
To do what?
Okay,
Like
do you do
burning down people's cities? They're very clear they don't
no
care about that.
no, what if the government can't control the narrative on the protests? Because I remember back in 2011 we had this thing called Occupy Wall Street,
The
and
government
the way,
utterly destroyed it.
yes, yes, I, I, I personally think this time the government won't be able to silence it.
Do you know the federal government alone has over 185,000 armed police
Police officers?
officers? Yeah, or
Yes, I know
law
that. Yeah.
enforcement officers. Like, what are you imagining? Like, what would the riot do? Where would it be? Like, they don't. They let Minneapolis burn to the ground. They burned Portland to the ground. Like, what? What do you? What would the protests do? Like,
Well,
if they take up space in a park for 2 months, what does the government care?
okay. Well, what if that leads to policy changes at the local level?
The local level that would have stood up for voters' rights in the 2020 election fraud, that local level.
All politics is local.
I mean, no, the people who run these hedge funds aren't talking to local politicians, but they're still the ones funding them, financing them, and telling them what policy to approve. I mean, how do you think not a single state really rose up against the obvious voting fraud in some of these cases? Like some of it, like the machine switching votes live on air. I don't think you can debunk those. We saw them happen live on air. So no one stepped up though. There's no local level. They all get their funding and financing for the same thing or from the same places. What what could happen that would de-seat their power? Are you talking revolution? Are you talking civil war? What do you mean?
I mean, I'm just talking about something like at some point, people won't take it no more, man.
As long as people are fed, they'll take it.
Yeah, yeah, we talked about this last night at Hollywood.
Yeah,
Almost like
and
people who are
people who can
stable.
feed their children won't risk their lives to
Oh,
overthrow a government. If they can't feed their children, it's a different story.
yeah,
Or
I don't think we'll see that, but personally, I don't think the hedge funds are going to get bailed out this time.
you think they're going to go to jail?
Not jail, but but they'll be fined, and their companies will go bankrupt.
No. If they get caught, it won't be a fine. If they get caught, they'll go to jail.
Nobody in 2008 went to jail, and look at what happened to the Lehman Brothers.
I mean, true. The Lehman Brothers, yeah, but I think nobody important will go to jail, but I think they'll put patsies in jail, and patsies did go to jail in 2008. Someone with one of the mortgages, I can't remember what, because he was taking money directly into his account or something. He was really like obvious. Then, I mean, people will
Was it
get bailed.
Madoff?
I thought
Bernie Madoff?
I thought Madoff just got a slap on the wrist.
No, Madoff is serving 150 years
Oh, really? Okay.
for a Ponzi scheme.
Related to
The big,
2008?
it was, yeah, around that time. He had the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. He siphoned off 150 billion dollars.
Right.
Well, I'm not sure about that, but it was well into the multi billions, and he stole from some really prominent people like Jeffrey Lurie, the guy that owns the Philadelphia Eagles,
Hmm.
and he stole from so many powerful people and got away with it for so many years.
That's funny. It reminds me of the Huckleberry Finn story where where they did this stupid play and everybody hated it, but they advertised it really well. So the first night, everyone or half the town went, but they were too embarrassed to admit that they got fooled. So they talked very good about the movie or the show. And then the second night, the other half the town went because they heard very good things. And then the third night, they snuck out of town because the town went back to riot against them. Um, and like it's the same kind of thing, right? That's how you get away with stealing rich people. You just keep jumping, and nobody wants to lose the face. But what we're talking about here is, and I don't think we're gonna see the same thing to AMC at all. I mean, we saw a spike maybe because everyone was covering their shorts just to save themselves, and like this kind of thing isn't likely to happen with silver because the the banks do own billions of dollars of it. So it would need to be a global move on silver to do the same kind of thing. But they definitely do this kind of manipulation everywhere where they just print stocks or print money or print like the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, they're going down. The Dow Jones is going down over the past week, and the federal government still has currency boosters in place. They're still printing every month and buying stock, and they're still not able to inflate it correctly. We see the memes about silver, but we also see all these banks leveraged into silver really, really high. I don't think buying paper silver is going to save you. Buying physical silver and taking deliveries is the right thing to do, and that will protect you. Certainly, certainly will. But this GameStop thing, it's like Owen Benjamin made a great analogy about how counting cards is illegal, right? You can get kicked out of a casino and you can be fined for counting cards, and that's kind of hilarious because really all card counting is a strategy, right? It's a mathematical strategy to try to swing the probability into your favor. It's not a dishonest card trick at all, and it's totally against the rules because no, the house gets to win, and it's the same kind of thing here. Like every time they can tear down these stocks because they have a license to print shares, and then they tear down these stocks and they literally take money from the companies and from the investors in it. And their favorite targets, of course, is new innovative businesses because once they tear down their stock price, not that GameStop is the new innovative business, but once they tear down the stock price, they can buy the company, acquire the AP, and fire everyone. Like this is one of the biggest tools in the destruction of small business America. We see the big Rona also doing the same exact thing. How many restaurants have shut their doors in America never to open up again? Man, it's heartbreaking. AMC, the theaters, like we're gonna have people scared of this virus for the next 10 years, and the theaters are gonna make a comeback. And come on, GameStop, physical games, new places like Steam, PlayStation Network, that's completely destroying the secondhand gaming market. The secondhand gaming market doesn't exist anymore. And why? Because, well, those companies want that $60 from every single person. And it's all this coordinated front to show that every way you try to climb this hierarchy, you're playing in their house. And they've got it all rigged, completely all rigged in their favor.
No, but do you think that this GameStop thing was done by a redditor, or do you think some powerful strings were pulled?
Um, I think that there was someone behind the scenes because I don't think redditors would have been able to acquire enough stock for a long enough period um to scare everyone like this. I don't think that. Yeah, I think there's definitely someone behind the scenes that we don't know about. Like this is some major fraud that's being shown here. Like these companies can't buy the stock back to cover their shorts because all the stock on the market is counterfeit. And the reason why places like Robinhood were not letting you buy in is because they weren't available. Right? The companies needed the right to buy this stock to cover their own naked shorts. And if they didn't cover their own naked shorts and then they do a failure to deliver, and that's like when they just turn up days later and say, "Oh, there was no stock that we sold. Give us that back." And
Yeah.
it it's they're allowed to do this stuff.
So Josh, are you playing with the stock market or no?
No, no way. Um, I mean the guys who are doing technical analysis of GameStop in the beginning and what they saw, like they were right. These companies just aren't going to be able to cover themselves. And but all it takes is everyone to try to cash in, right? And everyone's motivated by money. There aren't really many people who you see. So the only way that people can win is if they that's the meme of the diamond hands, right? Don't let go because that's the only way they'll win is they've got to let all of these naked shorts go to failure to delivers and like it's but we already saw Robinhood forcing people to close out of their positions, right? Like forcing their customers to sell stock to increase the available ones. So it doesn't look to me like anything's going to happen. The only thing I could see doing would be shorting GameStop for a year. And once everyone forgets about this and the companies can buy the stocks and cover themselves, it'll fade away. It's not going to happen again. At least not predictably, you know? Like it a lot of little people made a lot of money and that's not the point of these hedge funds.
No, but I mean, the one thing that was really funny to see was these hedge fund managers going on NBC and crying wolf. That was hilarious.
What do you mean crying wolf? What were they saying?
They were like, they can't be doing this. There needs to be government regulation. And it was, I think,
Can you find the clip and send
Leah.
it to me?
I'll try and find it. Just
I
hold on.
I've just seen memes about them saying that. I don't think they actually have said anything like that. I mean,
No,
what did
this
he
guy
want?
said
What did
it.
he want a law against?
I mean, he basically said that the concept of fairness is bullshit or something like that. It's actually really funny to see.
I saw the guy who said he said he's sick and tired of the anti-rich talking point that the rich need to pay their fair share of taxes.
Yeah. Him.
I didn't see him say anything about regulation.
I mean, he implied it.
So look back to something that we were talking about in our first episode while you're trying to find that. And this is the M2 money stock of the United States currency. And we see this massive rise here at the end of Corona. We see this yellow shading. It's now official. The Federal Reserve Bank has announced that we are in a recession in this time. So if we go back, last time we'll see that will be the 2008 years, I believe, if we make this chart big enough. And we need to talk about what's really coming. And there might be a bit of a squeeze on silver, but only if people take deliveries. So we can see that shaded area back in 2008 where Obama, the worst president in American history. So the right says. This was the rise of the M2 money stock. It was going on about 7 million at the end, and then it went up 2 million, right? So it went up about 20%. Sorry, about 30%. And here we see it at 15. So 30%. And we see it going
That's
to
the
20.
amount of money being printed.
No, it's the amount of money that's available for spending.
Okay,
So it's
okay,
like what, and we can see how fast this moves because an economy is driven by money stock times velocity. And we see here in 2008, everyone stopped spending their money. So it just sat in their banks. But like this is supply of money. That was $19 trillion. Like, was it? Yeah, I think it was.
no,
And
no, in circulation, no. In circulation, there was about, I think, 1.8 trillion in circulation.
1.8 trillion in circulation inside the United States. That's correct. But
Yeah.
you're not counting bank credit,
Okay, okay.
right? So if I give a federal bank $100, they can then open 10 accounts and say that there's $100 in each of them, with $90 being bank credit up until April of 2020, in which they no longer needed any money to issue bank credit. So if you get a direct deposit check from your bank, like from your company in the United States, there's probably no real money there. It's probably only bank credit going from the bank of the company to the bank of you, and your bank doesn't get any more money in their coffers. They just have bank credit. So that's
Okay.
why that's why this can be. And I don't know why I'm having such a hard time here, but 19,000, all this money is in units of dollars, is in billions. Yeah, so this is $19 trillion. I'm right. This is $19 trillion of money stock sitting right now. And the reason why we don't feel this massive inflation from all this is because of this chart right here. It's inflation, right? So if there's only $10 in your town, but every single person makes $100 a month, or sorry, a day. Think about it like this: you wake up in the morning, you spend $10 of bread on the baker, and then the baker spends $10 to the grocery store guy, and then that grocery store guy spends $10 on the farmer, and then that farmer goes to a restaurant and spends $10, and it's all literally the exact same $10. But since it's moved through the economy faster, everyone has made $10. So the GDP would be what each of them have made through each of that time. So if it went from person to baker to supplier to farmer to restaurant, that would be a $50 GDP, even though there's $10 in the system. And so what we feel of inflation, or what we actually feel of the money in our economy, is the velocity times that money stock, how fast that money stock is moving. And that's what this chart shows. So you see in 2001, each dollar was going through this chart is in a ratio, so each dollar was going through about 1.9 times a quarter, and now you can see we're down to about 1.1. And you look, there's been no recovery from these halty reopenings or whatever. Like it's just been bad. Like everything about this. And this one's been getting worse and worse and worse for a while, even as the government makes all this money and spends all this money. Like it's just been going down. Our dollar really is on its last days, and it's why we're seeing things like this phenomena with GameStop, because everybody is trying to get as much of the pie as they can before this game's over. And this game's going to be over. If you're going to invest in silver, buy physical silver and take deliveries on it, right? Like, absolutely. Like, look at this. Let's go back to 1979. There was a little bit of market manipulation there by private guys in a couple places, but mainly Garland, Texas, called the Garland Film Buyers, who were trying to manipulate the market. They got put in jail, and they sent silver up to $35. Silver's trading at 29, which is already going up quite a bit because of the memes. But then look back in 2008 with the real estate, and silver topped 50. Right? Silver is one of the most industrial metals in the world. It's needed to build everything. Gold and silver are needed to create high-end electronics. Your refrigerators need silver. Elon Musk can't make his little Barbie cars without silver. You can't make solar panels without silver. You can't make X-rays machines without silver. Like, it's used in the metal industry, or sorry, the medical industry. It's used in the computer industry. It's used everywhere. It's used in the industrial industry. It is one of the most useful metals. And one thing that's so amazing to look at is the U.S. debt clock. Oh, that's the wrong one. The U.S. debt clock has a counter in the bottom right that talks about the silver to dollar ratio, and this is how many dollars are coming out of the U.S. government for every ounce of silver that's being mined.
God damn.
And it's at
We're
4,700.
27 trillion.
Yeah, buddy. Choo choo,
Holy
motherfuckers. Let's hit 33 before we
man,
bring
I
it all
remember.
down.
I remember when Trump got in. It was at 18 trillion. It went up 9 trillion in
No, it
4 years.
wasn't that low, was it? Let's take a look at the debt
Yeah,
clock
it was.
machine. Whoa. On this day in 2016, it was at 19
Yeah,
million. Yeah, in 4 years we went $10 trillion more in debt. The
that's got to be a record pace.
um it's unbelievable. And one thing that's interesting is they don't show the silver to dollar ratio in the debt time machine, the debt clock time machine. Um which is interesting. What they do show you is from 1913 when the Federal Reserve was created, and there were $2.66 being created for every ounce of silver. But I remember at the beginning of Corona, this was at about $1,200 of silver, or sorry, yeah, $1,200 being created per ounce. And at the end of 2020, sorry, 2019, at the end of 2019, it was about $800, and that's going from my memory. And like
No, no, that's $4,000, 4,793.
I know I'm telling you that a year and a half ago, this was at under $800.
Oh shit. Okay.
That means there were
Oh
800
damn.
US dollars being created for every ounce of silver being mined.
That's not good.
No, it's really not. And have you ever seen the pyramid called Exter's Pyramid?
No.
All right, let me pull this up and tell me your thoughts on this. It's a little out of date now. I do believe this is referencing an article um, from 2009. Is this article being referenced? So take a look at this. So at the top, we have the derivatives, which is everything the government's doing, all their unfunded government liabilities, and this is worldwide. Is his point here, not just the U.S. And he's like, okay, so that's at uh, one. What's after trillion? 1,000 trillion, 600
A quintillion.
quintillion, five sets of three zeros, I guess. So yeah, one quintillion, 600, and then our miscellaneous assets and all of our business is about 125 trillion. Our debts and our stocks and securities and all that stuff are around 100 trillion. Um, and then these are government bonds or U.S. bank credit, and that's at 65 trillion. And the U.S. debt, which in 2009 was at 11 trillion. And then how much actual physical currency is in the world is at like 4 trillion. And this isn't quite right now because gold has doubled since 2009. So gold's at about 9 trillion, and silver All the silver ever mined in the history of the world at the current price is worth around $1 trillion.
All right.
And this is the real currency. And you can argue it for many other reasons. You can say whether human beings have like just an innate sense to value gold and silver. You can tell me that times are different. We don't need to make spoons and forks out of silver anymore because we know how to clean. And all right, you got a point. Only really fancy people have silverware anymore. But the reality of it is our governments are working together at the moment. And the second they stop, the second there's any kind of conflict going on, they need another way to charge people because they're not going to take each other's bullcrap currencies anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
China has 4 times the amount of USD in their national reserve banks than is in the continental United States. They have about $8
Couldn't they
trillion.
sell that?
No, they're prohibited from selling that at the current time from the International Monetary Fund. They would, I don't think it can
No,
happen
no.
just
They were
yet.
selling debt. They were selling debt.
They sold some of the U.S. debt, and I do believe they mean by selling debt. I believe they liquidated their position of U.S. government bonds.
Okay.
That is my understanding and my memory. But the major point of that is when the powers that be decide, they can snap their fingers and multiply the U.S.'s cash by 5 times. And
That's
there's nothing Congress.
hyperinflation.
It's a trigger for hyperinflation. So if you look at Weimar Germany in when they went to the paper mark, I'm spelling that wrong. Um, it had a spike before the big one, right? So here it is. If you look at the end of 1919, it had this spike and then it began to recover. So something like that 5 times would cause us to go into this spike. And I don't think that that would trigger the end of it. But then what I think would happen is the U.S. public, after having just been burned by some severe inflation, their trust in the money would be completely shattered. And then I think we would see foreign interest trust in the money to be completely shattered. And then they would start to liquidate their positions, probably more slowly because of fear from U.S. sanctions, but then as they started happening, you'd have, all the right wings who are selling gold start scaring the populace as much as possible. And then the fear is going to trigger an unstoppable inflation, right? Like, I don't think China liquidating their US dollar position would trigger an unstoppable inflation just yet because a lot of people in this world really do trust the dollar, and a fiat currency is completely built on trust. So
Exactly, and like I personally think as long as the sociological aspect of the U.S. dollar can still be preserved, I think the dollar will survive.
well, you don't see a trend and hear international leaders calling up and standing up and talking about the needing to decrease their reliance in America. You don't see the trend of America losing their spotlight on the world stage.
I do see that, but I feel like that's been a global trend for a very long time.
That's kind of my point, though, right?
And also, you look at it, the majority of the U.S. population agrees with the rest of the world that countries have got to stop being reliant on the United States. I think it's kind of a mutually beneficial thing there.
So, what happens when they stop trading in U.S. currency?
Well, don't they have international agreements that forces them? Like I know that.
Yes, but
The
those international agreements can be
OPEC.
pulled out of. So what would happen is they'll lose SWIFT codes if they pull out. They stop trading with U.S.
What's a
currency.
SWIFT code?
A SWIFT code is how you make an international bank transfer. If you look at your bank here and you want to
Okay.
bring in money from the U.S., you'll need to. It's like an international banking number, and
Okay.
that's the biggest threat. Vietnam didn't have SWIFT codes until quite recently because because the war, right? They told the IMF to get the f out of here. Gotta love them. But yeah, you'd lose your ability to trade in the current way. But if we look at Bitcoin, and I'm not actually talking about the BTC aspect, or sorry, asset. I want to talk about the what a cryptocurrency and a centralized blockchain is. So Bitcoin, of course, is decentralized, which is one of the good things and one of the problems with it, depending on how you look at. But we're seeing new technologies being created, and it's very, very easy to create your own cryptocurrency. So we're seeing ways that banks are starting to be able to send money to each other, even if they make their own cryptocurrency between the two banks, right? And only these two banks use it. One's in America and one's in Vietnam. Well, then it doesn't really matter if they have a SWIFT code, because what can happen is anytime an American needs to transfer to a Vietnamese, they'll transfer it to the one bank that has a relationship with the Vietnamese National Bank, and they have their own cryptocurrency to do it. Then they'll be able to transfer it country to country via cryptocurrency, and then the ledger will be created, right? So as banks are developed, or as people developed this tool for long distance ledging, basically, because that's all that blockchain is it's a ledger. It's a very secure ledger. It's a ledger that can be decentralized, like in the case of Bitcoin, or a ledger that is very much centralized. And so I think that the threat of losing SWIFT codes is declining in value. And I think the anti American sentiment is rising. And I don't see the global elites trying to squell the anti American sentiment. So eventually, I see these countries being given permission to stop trading in USD. And then you would have to believe that our government is going to literally burn the money coming back to not see that we're going to see serious inflation. And I'm not talking about hyperinflation, I'm talking about a serious shattering in the trust of the dollar, where a Coke becomes 25 bucks.
Well, wouldn't that be more of a hyperinflation? I mean, because a Coke is generally just $1.
Hyperinflation is about the fact that it's unstoppable.
Okay.
So I don't see, like, it depends. If Lithuania liquidates their USD holdings, and I have no idea how big their USD holdings are, but I'm guessing it's probably like $50 billion. If they sent $50 billion back to the United States, because think about what they're gonna do. They're not gonna like put it in a box and label U.S. government and mail it to the U.S. government, and then the U.S. government be like, "Oh, they sent us our $50 billion back. Thanks. All right, destroy that so it doesn't harm our country's economy." What they're gonna do is they're gonna go, "Well, we need to buy rubber, we need to buy oil, we need to buy steel. I see that America makes all those things. Let's take this $50 billion we haven't been allowed to spend, and let's buy oil, steel, and then we'll sell it on our own markets and we'll raise our currency." And so they'll just buy things, and they'll buy things from American companies. And so American companies will naturally get this swelling of dollars, and then that's what will start to trigger a real genuine inflation, because they're trying to do that
Well,
with
no.
$8 trillion. Go ahead.
No, you say that, but as long as the money is going directly to these U.S. companies, the market wouldn't really feel it, would it?
Well, then we go back into the velocity, because if all this money's getting pumped into U.S. companies, what are they going to do? They're going to spend it, because that's what companies do. They grow, they spend money, they create jobs, right? And then as they give people more jobs, or they need more people to work, well, then, we're going to have to pay people a little bit more, because we want to grow, and there's no employees available. So I the real way, like, and this would be the Keynesian economics argument, Like Benjamin Bernanke would say that, well, that's why, and the Koch brothers as well, they would say that's why we need all these mass importations of people from third world countries so that they can do the jobs that are needed so that salaries don't raise. And then they'll keep salaries down because the labor pool will raise. And then the whole entire country will become more productive. So if we could import enough people to evenly distribute the money to, then you're right, we wouldn't really feel it. But if it's all because let's say an engineer was getting $60,000 a year now, but now there's no engineers because there's so much money coming into the U.S. that every single engineering firm is successful right now because there's just not enough. A steel mill worker would make more sense. A steel mill worker is making 40,000. This company needs to expand. They're like there are no available steel mill workers. Okay, let's raise our salary. We can afford to do it because we're making so much money. Let's look for an $80,000 steel mill worker, and then all of a sudden they have 100 people lined up out their door to apply for the job because it'll double their salary. And that's how we would start to feel it if there's no growth in population because people's salaries would then go up. And then what's going to happen was the guy's like, well, I'm not going to work at McDonald's if I can work $80,000 in a steel mill or something that's exportable, tire, rubber, things like that. So then in order for McDonald's to even have employees, they're going to have to raise their salaries to become competitive. And then once they raise their salaries, the cost of your burger is going to go up. And then Coke's going to have to do the same thing, right? They're like, oh my gosh, all of our employees just left to go work in the steel industry because China just bought $8 trillion worth of steel and there's not enough steel. So we need to double our salaries in order to survive, which means we need to raise the price of Coke to $25 because now we've got to pay every factory worker $90,000 to be competitive with the steel industry. And if we're not competitive with the steel industry, then we won't have enough skilled manual laborers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. It's all about. You were talking way too fast, dude. Sorry. Okay, so you're basically saying that it's about so almost like if these companies get all of this money from the liquidated holdings, they're gonna eventually grow their companies, which then causes them to pay workers' salaries. But to keep the salaries down, you have to import people from Mexico to keep it down, right?
Yes, because if we had a population growth in lockstep with our currency growth, then there wouldn't be a danger of inflation. Because, like we said, right now there's 1.8 trillion dollars distributed among 330 million Americans. And of course, people like AOC will be like, "Well, the 1% at the top has the same." Yes, they do. Okay, but it's distributed like that in America, and not many people go hungry. Of course, there are homeless people in America, and there are people going hungry, but not many as comparative to other nations. Most of our country is well fed, with $1.8 trillion distributed among 330 million Americans, and prices, in theory, could be stable around that because everyone does trust the dollar.
That is true.
But what we've seen with these charts that I'm showing from uh, from Fred, let me pull these up one more time, is that right now, because of the coronavirus, the money that's sitting in people's bank, and this is long before anyone's even liquidated, right? The money that's sitting in people's banks has massively gone up to 19.5 trillion dollars, as opposed to when Trump took office, there was $12 trillion sitting in people's banks ready to be spent. And you're like, well, why don't we feel that? Because that's already such a major increase. Why isn't the inflation there? And when we go back to Obama's coming in, we're we're tripled almost. 7.5. So not quite, but we're 2.5. So like, why isn't the inflation? It hasn't been 2.5 in the past 12 years. And the reason it hasn't is because people are spending money slower. And if all that $8 trillion went into this vault and we locked it up. Or sorry, that $8 trillion from China went into a vault, and the government locked it up and said, "No one spend this money." It wouldn't affect our income at all, because it wouldn't affect our inflation at all. So what we see is this massive trend that dollars are just not being um, spent as fast. So the velocity of money is the frequency at which one unit of currency is used to purchase domestically produced goods and services within a given time period. So in quarter four or quarter one of 2008, a dollar, every single dollar in the United States economy, every single quarter would move 1.935 times. It would go through 1.9 persons' hands. Obviously, this is an average because obvious. You can't,
Yeah,
but or actually, I suppose you could spend $1 and then you could spend 93 cents of it. So yeah, you
yeah,
spend $1, it goes from the baker to the supermarket, and the supermarket spends 93 cents of it in the same quarter, and then the next quarter it happens again to every dollar in our economy. Whereas right now, and at the very peak of quarter two of this beer bug, $1 was only going through 1.1 times. So even though people have more money right now, since they're spending it so slowly, the inflation has not set in. What happens when people fear inflation?
they start spending.
They spend their money as fast as possible, because the longer it takes to spend your money, the less money you have. So whatever the government creates new money, to quote Mike Maloney, or he would yell at me for calling it money. He'd say it's currency, not money. Money is a store of value. Um, and he's right. He's right. But whenever the government prints new currency, whoever spends it first, which is the government, steals value from whoever spends it last. Which is why, with all my Trump money, I bought physical silver, right? Literally, like
Yeah,
that I can hold in my hands. And because I want to take the wealth from the people who are going to spend it the slowest. So we look at a silver market, and we look at a market that's been manipulated for ages with fake paper silver to keep prices artificially down. There would be such massive resistance if Wall Street bets tried to conquer silver. Number one, at $125, $150 an ounce, new silver mines will open. They're not really new silver mines, they're actually old silver mines, but their efficiency in these mines have gotten so low that they've shut down mining, basically in anticipation of the price rising. Once the price goes to $125, $150, tons of mines, silver mines all over the world will reopen, ones that have been shut down because they're running out. Um, and we'll see more resistance there. Silver, I do think, is going to hit $1,000 in the next 5 years, and I think it'll hit $100 in the next two. But I don't think it's going to be run by Reddit, and there's going to be a hell of a
I
lot
mean,
more resistance.
for precious metals to rise, and it needs to be an international effort
China
because,
and I
like,
mean, like China and Vietnam influence the gold market every year right before New Year because of their gold buying just for gifts.
no, like with what you saw with GameStop being pumped to $300, it's going to be way more difficult to do that with gold and silver, unless you have a gigantic, worldwide collective effort,
I mean,
like some
you're right, but the market cap
redditors,
of
yeah,
silver is a lot bigger than GameStop. But
yeah.
the market cap of silver is not bigger than the S&P 500. So it's only $1 trillion. So when we're talking about the elites being able to manipulate this, it's a very much manipulatable market. Let's do a 1 month chart for GameStop to see it a bit better. And the technicals still have it on a buy. Oh my gosh. That's insane. That's totally insane. Are you going to buy any?
I'm on silver or GameStop.
GameStop.
No,
Okay.
I yeah, I'm not gonna do GameStop. Um, I'll probably do Nokia if that's still available. If they haven't halted trading for that,
Silver
I
has
might
gone up,
also.
and I just noticed it's 8:30 in the morning, so markets are opening in an hour, and silver did go up quite a bit over the weekend. Look at that chart, man. How
So
can
let's
you how can you tell me
look
that in
at
the
the
80s
peaks.
silver was higher? 80s and 2008 are the peak, or 2011, excuse me, are the peaks.
Well, the 80s, you had the that big stock market boom, and then in 2011, I'm not sure what that was.
That was the end of the fallout of people thinking that our currency was going to crash. Actually, that started
Oh,
that started in 2008, and then silver just never stopped going from $10 all the way up to 50. And it doesn't show the highest peak here, but silver did go over 50 in 2011, and that was all triggered out of fear. It's a very emotional market, and it's very much dominated by the physical market. A lot of silver suppliers shut down physical ordering over the weekend because of the social media stuff.
all right. So your final prediction on what's going on with the stock market. What do you think we're gonna see?
I think we're gonna for the rest of 2021. I think we're gonna continue to see these crazy, crazy swings, and I think the people who play long enough will lose a lot of money. And I think that we are in a period of everyone trying to get as much as they can because they know that the show is over. I think it's just going to get crazier. I don't know like what specifically. I don't think we'll see another one led by Reddit, but I think this GameStop thing will not be the most interesting stock market news by the end of the year.
I predict that. I predict that the whole return to normal thing will be a big thing in the stock market.
Do you think it'll be? Do you think it'll be compounded with more government money? Do you think Joe Biden's going to send us more money?
No,
No, you don't.
I
That
wouldn't.
was all just talking
No,
points to get elected. What a turd.
yeah, of course.
What
He's
a
a
turd.
dick.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you expect? Fuck.
I I don't know. I expect war with Iran. That's all I expect from Joe Biden. I expect him to print money anytime.
Venezuela.
I expect him to print money anytime he can. So I wouldn't be surprised if oh, I just got a message from a friend of mine watching. Hey, what's up, Craig? I wouldn't be surprised if totally lost my train of thought. Um, what was I saying? Help me remember.
You were saying something about if Joe Biden.
Oh, right. I wouldn't be surprised if a bailout comes soon or some giant expenditure. Like, look how much Trump increased the debt supply, and it's the Democrats' favorite
eight
thing to
trillion.
do. Yeah, I know. It's insanity, and it's the Democrats'
Like
favorite
that,
thing to
like
do.
that's the most. Like even during Obama's 8 years, the debt went up 7 trillion in 8 years. It's gone up over 8 trillion in less than 4 years. That is just wrong. That's despicable.
Yeah, but it's them continuing to create the currency. So I don't understand how you can argue that inflation's not coming ahead.
I mean, I don't deny it,
Uh,
but I mean, what extent will will the market really feel it though?
Market will
That's the
keep going up.
question.
Market will keep posting new highs.
like
I think under Joe Biden, every
no
record
no
Trump
no
sent
no
with the
no no
market
no
will
no no. I'm
be
not talking about the stock market. I'm talking about just for regular civilians.
well, commodities markets matter the most. The prices of pork, the prices of milk,
Oil,
the prices. Well,
oil.
oil. We only need oil because the government tells us we need oil, right? Like, if you remove market restrictions, the U.S. could get off of its oil dependency rather quickly. Um, and we see Biden going to like with the Keystone Pipeline trying to raise oil prices, which what? Okay, he promised
Which is stupid. Yeah.
it is, but when we see food go up, we'll start to be in danger. And that's when the metals will
Yeah.
really start to rise. When people are worried about the store of value so that they can buy grain, they can buy rice, they can buy pork, they can buy milk, they can buy beef, stuff like that. I think those are the indicators we'll see when those start to rise. Bill Gates did just become the biggest owner of farmland in
Farm
the
owner.
world.
Yeah.
And he is a eugenicist intent on lowering the Earth's population. So he could do that by an extreme price hike, or he could just stop producing food to create supply shortages. So I think watching
And
the
he
commodity
did that,
markets is the most important thing right now. Go
and
ahead.
he bought all that farmland at the same time when he was telling people, "Oh, don't buy private property."
Yeah, I hope Silver Moons. I hope game or the Wall Street boys come to it, and if they send silver to $1,000 this year, I will buy some
You will be a
farmland.
very a wealthy man.
I'll get myself a nice little farm in Vietnam, and I will be living the dream life. So I'm definitely hoping there, but I expect 5 years for 4-digit silver, but I think 2 years for triple-digit silver. I think there'll be resistance at 125 and $150 like nobody's business. I think it'll take years to get out of it, but I think that our government is paving the way for a globally dominant um, currency, and it'll be a fiat currency. I'm almost sure. Might even be a cryptocurrency, but I doubt it'll be a decentralized cryptocurrency. It'll likely be a centralized cryptocurrency. And I expect in order to do that, they need the dollar to crash. They need everyone in the world to fall out of love with the dollar so that they can push their new thing. And all the signs point to the fact that they want a one world currency. And why would Xi Jinping be okay with allowing that one world currency to be the United States dollar? And how long is he going to put up with it? Our
Not
economy
long.
is in shambles. Why would he be trusting China's wealth to dollars in the vault?
Yeah, he wouldn't.
Well, then what happens when that $8 trillion comes home?
We're fucked.
No, you're not fucked. Prepare yourself. If
Yeah.
you need to store value, like some people are just reliably useful people, right? And they can find work whenever in every situation as long as there's enough people gathering around an area, right? So you
Yeah.
won't lose your skills, you won't lose your ability to produce, and that's what you should be valuing right now. And if you do have money that or currency that you would like to store value, take deliveries on silver and gold because it can prepare you against this. And it'll trickle up if nothing else, right? It'll just keep
Yeah.
trickling up. When you look at those giant charts, remember that the gold standard wasn't completely and formally removed from the U.S. until 1973. So Craig's asking, a friend of mine who's watching this is asking about HMNY, which is a penny stock. Have you looked at that one at all?
No, I'm not familiar.
Nah, neither am I. I'll give it
Again,
a look up after the show.
disclaimer, guys. We're not giving you any financial advice. This is just our 2 cents.
We are monkeys and we think stocks are bananas. So our advice is
Uh,
to invest in bananas. All right. Thanks for
but yeah,
watching. Thanks for tuning in
all
there,
right, guys.
Craig. Do you want to have a point before we end? We're already
No,
15
no,
minutes
no, no,
over.
no, no, no,
All
no.
right, guys. So good morning. Good Monday morning to everybody. Have a productive week. Keep your eyes out. My advice is to stay away from the enemy's casino because you are not meant to win. But hey, if you've got some GameStop, diamond hands, baby.